Hey guys, Sign here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're going to be doing another Adam the Beginning arc review. We're going to be looking at arc number 3, which is the Mysterious Island arc, chapters 8 through 11. Like I mentioned before, this is written by Masami Yuki, with art by Tetsura Kazuhara. The publisher here is Panini. Of course, I have the Mexican editions. However, these volumes are published in English by Titan Manga, so you can get them. The demographic is adult or seinen. The genres here are sci-fi and action. And at this point, the anime only adapts the first 2 arcs. So this arc is not adapted in the first 12 episodes of the anime in the season 1. I don't know if there's going to be more seasons. I'm sure there will be at some point because I don't see it not being the case. But, I mean, it might not be, right? It might not have been popular in Japan. I'm not really sure. So this is not currently adapted by anything. And ratings-wise, this arc is a 5 out of 5 for me. I really enjoyed it. The premise here is basically that the boys and the crew, in this case, that means Makoto and Granny, which is her maid, and Shunzaku and Ran join the boys, right, to go in search of Dr. Lolo. And they do this by using this information Shunzaku showed up with that is leading them to this mysterious island. They basically tracked a bunch of shipments and found out that all of these shipments end up disappearing somewhere, and no one's raised an alarm about it. So they know that there's an island there, and they decide to go investigate it. So that's pretty cool. So, yeah, the premise is that's all there is to that. In terms of plot line here, like I said, this is chapters 8 through 11. It covers the last 3 chapters of volume 2, and the first chapter or 2 of volume 3, right? So this is what the volumes look like in Spanish. There's no color pages in the back half of volume 2. Here's volume 3. I think there's some color pages here. Oh, no, doesn't look like it. There's no color pages to this arc, which kind of sucks, but you know, it is what it is. It's not that big of a deal. Whenever there are color pages, they're all pretty great. And I mean, here's a colored illustration straight out of the chapters. Right, so it starts with Shunzaku, who shows up with information about Dr. Lolo, like I mentioned. And at the Tsutsumi house, Makoto and Granny are going off to sea. And initially, it doesn't seem like these are related instances because Shunzaku kind of comes into the lab, and Makoto and Granny are somewhere else, right? And they talk about how they're going off to sea. Moriya asks them, why? And Granny's like, well, we're going to go with Makoto's friends, the young boys from Lab 7 or whatever. She mentions them, and he realizes, oh, she's going off with them. And he doesn't like it because he told his sister that she shouldn't hang out with them because their stupid is going to rub off on her. And it is what it is. She does it anyway. She ends up enjoying hanging out with them, so she continues to do so. So, yeah, Makoto uses her money to get the team, or the crew, or whatever you want to call them, into this crazy cool little futuristic jet that she and her family own. Granny is able to drive it because she seems to be like some crazy badass, ninja maid, right? Which is fun. And they get into this plane and they fly off to that mysterious island. They, land, no problems yet. They set up the camp, and then everyone is excited to go exploring when Umataro is like, you know what, guys, stop. We don't need to do that. We brought all of the A10 series robots to help us out, right? So we get to learn that all of these previous versions of Adam exist, right? And so the first one was just a program, so they didn't bring him, but they brought number 2, which is a little snake, I think. Let me see. Yeah, so number 1 is a program, like I said. Number 2 it looks like a Roomba, but then it turns out to be like this flying drone. Number 3 is a snake robot. Number 4 is a little dog robot. And number 5 does not exist. Well, it exists, but they don't talk about it for some reason. I think that it broke. And then number 6 is, of course, Adam, right? And so we get this cute little panel explaining who they are. And then they all go off into the jungle to explore. And Ran and Shunzaku were actually kind of sad because they were excited about exploring, but they don't get to do that anymore, so it sucks. But ultimately, they decide to have some fun on the beach instead, right? So it's pretty cute. At this point, Ran and Makoto change into cute swimsuits, and they're just frolicking on the beach, while Umataro is trying to get Hiroshi to pay attention to what they're doing, because he tells them, we're not here on vacation, we're here to investigate, you need to stop playing around with them, right? So, yeah. Time passes, and then it's late at night, and a Mars robot shows up. A robot that looks like Mars, that looks like this one right there. Although they have a different color scheme, I think they're mostly all black, right? Because they're like a military unit, and they're not as advanced as Mars. And they start hurting A-104, and 6 saves A-104 from this robot, and it turns into this battle that actually ends up embroiling Ran and Shunzaku because they chased after 106 late at night because they wanted to go off and exploring anyways, right? Even though they weren't supposed to. 6 is actually initially winning against this single robot, but he has no weapons or knowledge about how to use them, and so when several of them show up in this kind of like Kamen Rider scene type thing, he ends up losing more or less because he doesn't know anything about weapons, because they threw this concussive grenade at him and he didn't know to dodge it. He only like stopped him, like he used his arm to guard, right? But because it's a concussive grenade, it broke his arm, and he didn't know that this would happen, so he ends up losing his arm. And this is kind of the turning point here, where basically he gets really messed up, and as soon as it looks like he's gonna die, or they're gonna get rid of him, destroy him, another robot shows up, and this robot turns out to be North, which is this not really humanoid robot. It's like semi-humanoid, but it's really just like a really weird robot, and that's this robot right here. And she shows up with her owner, Aaron Brenner, who helps A-106 beat back the Legion of Mars robots, right? Also, these Mars robots are called Balt, but we don't know this at this time, so that's why I keep calling them Mars robots. I know they have a different name. I'm just using the terminology that is available to us at the moment, right? And then after they beat these Mars robots, this tower out of nowhere opens up, right? In a very kind of like the Incredibles type of situation, right? And they basically decide to break it and enter into the space that's hidden inside the island. And they find a bunch of data that relates to the Great Catastrophe. And they realize, oh, this is why they have all of these defenses and why this island is so mysterious and lost. But they don't really know how this connects to Dr. Lolo, right? Because it kind of doesn't. And we see that there's this data about the Great Catastrophe, and this brings us into this flashback for Tenma's childhood. So technically, the Great Catastrophe happened 5 years before the start of the series. And in the flashback, Tenma looks really young. He doesn't look like he's a 14 or 15-year-old. He looks like a 10-year-old, right? But, I mean, that could be wrong. Like, that just might be me interpreting incorrectly, right? So I don't know what age Tenma is supposed to be, right? Hiroshi is clearly like an adult, right? Like, he is a proper university-level student. But Tenma, based on the fact that his childhood version 5 years ago looks so young, might mean that Tenma is significantly younger than Hiroshi, and I don't think that that's true. Like, that doesn't seem like it was supposed to be, right? So, I don't know. This left me a little bit confused in terms of the timeline of stuff, but ultimately we just learned that, Tenma's parents died in the in this great catastrophe situation, and that's more or less why he wants to create this god robot figure, right? Because they told him, hey, we can't save your parents. We need someone that is above and beyond human, a superhuman, someone with insane abilities, and we just don't have that, right? And so basically we see that him wanting to create a robot like Adam, or maybe better than Adam, is directly tied to this desire to not let other people feel the pain that he felt, right? So pretty cool stuff. I really like this aspect here because it's not really directly told to you, but you can clearly infer it if you just pay attention to what's going on, right? So I like that. I think that they did a great job with the storytelling there. And well, the island collapses once we get back to the present time. North saves A-106 from drowning because he was missing an arm and a leg, and so he was too weak to properly escape, and he was so heavy that he was drowning. But North managed to go down and save him because of something that happened between the robots. Basically, A-106 tried to communicate with her, it didn't really work exactly, but something happened that kind of awoken her interest in him, right? Which is technically not supposed to be possible because the programming for North is significantly lower level than the programming for A106, but, you know, it is what it is. There's a certain level of, like, mysticism or not really proper science to this stuff happening here, right? So it's cool in either way. And then the ending here of the story is basically Six having this dream where he's like a real life boy, right? It's like almost like a Pinocchio dream, right? And I think it's supposed to be like a flash forward that he somehow gets based on, like, you know, the beginning of Astro Boy, right? But I'm not really sure. And then it turns out that he calls Hiroshi dad when he wakes up. And it's quite a pretty cute scene, actually. Under different circumstances, if I had not already read this before, I might have, you know, gotten emotional about it. But in this case, I wasn't really all that interested. Like, it was like a really good scene, but also I feel like there was a certain emotional component that I was missing because I wasn't like super invested in the story at the time. And that's just natural because I've already read this a bunch of times, right? So it's understandable, it's cool, and I really wish that it had affected me as much as it probably did the first time. But it was a really great scene. I liked it a lot. It's always fun that Hiroshi's so, like, invested in the emotional aspect of the robots, and Tenma's always trying to tell him to stop, and it's just really funny. Like, their interactions are great. So that's it for the plot line. In terms of characters, I mean, we get background on Tenma. We learned that his parents died. We get introduced to Granny properly, and it turns out that she's just like this fun little, like, crazy ninja maid lady, which is fun. We get introduced to North and to Aaron Brenner, and otherwise there really isn't too much going on. I mean, Aaron Brenner is a really crazy European guy. North is a really powerful robot, but isn't really properly humanoid, and also not really not humanoid. It's like a weird mix, right? And it's kind of interesting. I think she's supposed to look like a siren, right? Or, sorry, like a mermaid. But I'm not really sure. I mean, I guess she kind of does because she has like a tail, but it makes her just look kind of odd. It doesn't look like interesting, right? So I don't know. But that's it for that. In terms of world building, I mean, we learn that there's a plot related to the Great Catastrophe. Like, there's some sort of, like, conspiracy to hide it. And we get to see more robots and more AI scientists. But really, there isn't too much going on here. I mean, this is mostly just an interesting deviation from your usual action aspects of the series at this point, right? But it does kind of open up to more things later on. So overall, I liked it. And then in terms of artwork and fan service, I mean, there's a little bit of fan service because there's like a little bit of a beach episode vibe to one of the chapters here, but not really. It's pretty minimal. In terms of the action, though, it's probably my favorite part of this story. Just the way that everything is drawn makes the action seem so dynamic and powerful and so full of life and energy, and, like, you can feel the power. You can feel, like, the way that the robots move, right? And since I grew up doing robotics in high school, I really have this, like, appreciation for, like, some of the mechanical aspects that they kind of try to highlight, right? Like, every time Adam throws a punch, he, like, has to cock his like, one of his arms, right? And so there's this, like, interesting little, like, bit of artwork that kind of shows that happening, and it reminds me a lot of some of the work that we did when I was in high school, right? So it's pretty cool stuff. I really liked it. And there's also just something really cool of, like, of that kind of imagery. If you guys ever watch Real Steel, you know how the big bad guy character at the end of the movie is Zeus, right? And he has this really cool, like, pneumatic punching ability, right? So he, like, cocks his arm back and then he punches forward, like, way faster than he should. It's very similar to that, and it's really, really cool. It reminds me of some of the stuff we did in high school. It's not really the same, but we had this kind of, like, shooting thing that used, basically, it was like a catapult, right? But part of the action that it had to happen for it to do that was this kind of cocking mechanism where it would, like, set up, make this loud noise, and then, like, restrain itself before it released, right? And it's kind of the same idea. It reminds me a lot of some of the images here. So I really like it. I think there's, it's mostly just because of my own background that I really find this interesting, but it is what it is. In terms of rating, it's a 5 out of 5. I really enjoyed the mystery aspect of this story. I really enjoyed this kind of, like, initially kind of relaxing kind of start, and then this really awesome ramping up of the action. I thought it was really, really fun. So I liked it a lot. So there you go. That's it for arc number 3. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you thought. Thank you guys very much for watching, and see you guys later.